Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Introduction to Environmental Discourse Analysis. Environmental Discourse Analysis, EDA, is the study of language in environmental contexts, dissecting how communication shapes our understanding of nature, policies, and practices. This field emerged in the late 20th century alongside rising global environmental awareness and the increased influence of environmental politics in media and public policy. Drawing on social sciences and eco-criticism, EDA unravels how discourse, narratives, framing, and eco-linguistics affect perceptions and actions on critical environmental issues. 1. Environmental Discourse Analysis. Environmental discourse analysis involves studying how language and communication are used in environmental contexts to understand how they shape public understanding, policies, and practices related to the environment. Here's a more detailed overview of its definitions and concepts. Definitions and concepts. Language and communication in environmental contexts. Definition: the analysis of how language, texts, and discourse construct meanings about the environment and influence perceptions and actions. Concept: investigates the rhetoric and narratives present in environmental debates, focusing on how language influences public opinion and policy. Framing and narrative construction. Definition: the process of structuring environmental issues using specific language that influences public perception. Concept: frames guide how people interpret information by emphasizing certain aspects of an issue over others, which in turn influences policy debates and decisions. Metaphors and symbolism. Definition: the use of figurative language to represent environmental issues in ways that make them more relatable or understandable. Concept: metaphors and symbols shape how people think about the environment, using comparisons to convey complex issues succinctly, e.g., carbon footprint. Ideological perspectives. Definition: analyzing how different ideologies and worldviews shape environmental discourse. Concept: ideologies influence how people interpret environmental issues, leading to varied discourses that align with different political, economic, or cultural perspectives. Power and hegemony. Definition: the study of how language in environmental discourse reinforces or challenges existing power structures. Concept: investigates who controls the dominant narratives around environmental issues and how this affects policy, often examining the role of governments, corporations, and NGOs. Public discourse and policy impact. Definition: the examination of how public discussions around environmental issues influence policy formulation. Concept: analyzes the interaction between public discourse and political decision-making, identifying how discourse can lead to changes in policy or reinforce the status quo. Discourse strategies. Definition: techniques used in environmental communication to persuade, inform, or influence audiences. Concept: includes rhetorical strategies like storytelling, appeals to emotion, and scientific authority to shape public attitudes toward environmental issues. Applications of environmental discourse analysis. Media analysis. Evaluates how environmental issues are represented in the media and how this influences public understanding and opinion. Policy analysis. Assesses the language used in environmental policy documents to understand how policies are framed and justified. Advocacy and activism. Studies the rhetoric of environmental advocacy groups to understand how they mobilize support and frame environmental problems and solutions. Corporate communication. Analyzes how companies use language to shape perceptions of their environmental impact, often revealing cases of greenwashing. Scientific communication. Investigates how scientists communicate about environmental issues, aiming to understand how to improve public understanding of scientific findings. In summary, environmental discourse analysis examines how language and communication shape our understanding of the environment, influencing policies and practices. It involves analyzing metaphors, framing, power dynamics, and discourse strategies to uncover how narratives are constructed and how they impact environmental outcomes. 2. History and context of environmental discourse analysis. Emergence. Environmental discourse analysis rose to prominence in the late 20th century, paralleling the growth of the environmental movement. As environmental issues gained global attention, the study of language used in this context became crucial to understanding how public perceptions and policies are shaped. Contextual conditions. Environmental awareness. During the late 20th century, environmental issues like climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss became global concerns. This heightened awareness created a demand for analyzing how language shapes the public understanding of these issues. Political shifts. The rise of environmental politics influenced public policy and media discourse. Politicians and policymakers began framing their environmental agendas to align with public sentiment, often using language strategically to gain support. Media influence. The media increasingly influenced how the public perceived environmental issues. The portrayal of environmental topics in news outlets, documentaries, and social media shaped public opinion and drove demand for discourse analysis. Intellectual origins. Social sciences. Environmental discourse analysis draws on linguistics, sociology, and political science. These disciplines provide methods to understand how language constructs meaning, reinforces ideologies, and influences social behavior. Eco-criticism. Connections to eco-criticism link environmental discourse analysis to literature and cultural studies. Eco-criticism examines how ecological themes are represented in literature and media, providing insights into cultural attitudes toward the environment. Environmental discourse analysis emerged in the late 20th century alongside the environmental movement, focusing on how language shapes perceptions and policies. It is grounded in a context of increased environmental awareness, political shifts towards environmentalism, and media influence on public opinion. Its intellectual roots lie in social sciences and eco-criticism, emphasizing the multidisciplinary nature of this field. 3. Key concepts of environmental discourse analysis. Discourse. Definition. Discourse refers to ways of representing the world through language. It encompasses the narratives, terminology, and rhetorical strategies used to discuss a particular topic. Concept. In environmental discourse analysis, discourse frames how people perceive and understand environmental issues. Different discourses reflect various perspectives, shaping how problems and solutions are conceptualized. Environmental narratives. Definition. Environmental narratives are stories and frameworks that shape and influence perceptions of environmental issues. They provide context and meaning to complex environmental phenomena by framing them in a more understandable and relatable way. Concept. Narratives like climate crisis or sustainable development frame environmental challenges in ways that influence public opinion, policymaking, and activism. They can inspire action, reinforce beliefs, or challenge existing norms. Framing. Definition. Framing involves presenting environmental issues in particular ways that shape interpretation and understanding. It emphasizes specific aspects of an issue while downplaying others. Concept. In environmental discourse analysis, framing is crucial because it determines how audiences interpret environmental problems and solutions. For instance, framing climate change as a global emergency emphasizes urgency, while framing it as a scientific issue focuses on the need for technical solutions. Ecolinguistics. Definition. Ecolinguistics is the study of how language influences environmental perception and policy. It examines how linguistic choices reflect and affect attitudes towards nature and environmental issues. Concept. Ecolinguistics reveals how language can either contribute to or challenge environmentally harmful ideologies. For instance, terms like natural resources suggest that nature exists for human use, while ecocide implies a more protective stance towards the environment. Key concepts in environmental discourse analysis include discourse, environmental narratives, framing, and ecolinguistics. Understanding these concepts helps to uncover how language shapes perceptions of environmental issues, influences policy, and reflects societal attitudes toward the environment. Conclusion. The study of environmental discourse analysis offers crucial insights into the role of language in shaping our environmental perceptions. By analyzing discourse, narratives, framing, and ecolinguistics, EDA reveals the power of communication in influencing public understanding, policy formation, and societal actions towards pressing environmental challenges. Understanding these dynamics is vital for fostering effective dialogue and sustainable practices in addressing environmental concerns. Frequently asked questions. What is environmental discourse analysis, EDA? Environmental discourse analysis is the study of language and communication within the context of environmental issues. It focuses on understanding how language shapes perceptions, policies, and practices related to the environment. What is the historical background of EDA? EDA emerged in the late 20th century alongside the environmental movement. This was influenced by growing global awareness of environmental issues like climate change, shifts in political focus towards environmental policies, and increased media attention on these topics. How does EDA relate to social sciences? EDA is interdisciplinary, drawing insights from fields like linguistics, sociology, and political science. It investigates how language impacts the social constructs around environmental issues. What role does eco-criticism play in EDA? Eco-criticism, which explores ecological themes in literature and cultural studies, contributes to EDA by providing insights into how language and cultural artifacts shapes environmental perceptions and discourses. What are the key concepts in EDA? Key concepts include discourse, environmental narratives, framing, and ecolinguistics. These concepts help analyze how environmental issues are communicated and perceived. What does discourse mean in the context of EDA? In EDA, discourse refers to the ways of representing the world through language. It involves analyzing how language constructs meanings around environmental topics. What are environmental narratives? Environmental narratives are stories or frameworks that shape how environmental issues are understood. These narratives can influence public perception and policy. How does framing relate to environmental discourse? Framing in EDA refers to the way environmental issues are presented in communication. This affects how these issues are perceived and prioritized by the public. What is ecolinguistics? Ecolinguistics is the study of how language influences our understanding of environmental issues and the resulting policies. It examines the impact of linguistic choices on environmental attitudes. Why is media influence significant in EDA? Media influence is crucial because it shapes public perception of environmental issues. EDA studies how media representations affect societal understanding and discourse on the environment.